This episode sponsored by Lake Monster Details, producing the Don's Light and Magic Legacy line of parts, offering upgrade parts and decals for accuracy, special effects, and lighting. Visit www.lakemonsterdetails.com and make it glow. Also sponsored by GCals, producing aftermarket replacement decals and custom quality graphics for your favorite spaceships. Visit www.gcals.company.site and add some personalization to your sci-fi models today. Also sponsored by Mask Design, boldly going where no masking kit has gone before. Take your model to the next level of detail and accuracy with a masking kit from Mask Design. Visit Mask Design on Facebook or click the ordering link in the notes below the video.
Dispatch War Rocket Ajax to bring me back his body.
What's up, fellow modelers? Will here. Welcome to the Anson's Chair. This episode, we're going to be talking about the base for the War Rocket. Yes, this episode is all about that base, and that's all it's about. No trouble. But anyway, I've got the I've shown images of the 3D model I've worked up for the War Rocket control base, which is basically modeled after the control station, or at least one of the versions of the control station on the War Rocket itself. And we're going to look at that this episode. That's all I'm going to deal with this episode, because I'm going to put these files out, and this is kind of going to be a reference, I guess, for those files, for those of you that may be interested in building it. So without further ado, give me a minute. I'll put you on the bench. We'll get to work. Here is the base I'm working on. So far I've done just a painting on this. And if you look at the prop they used in the movie, this is red and this is white. Now around this part here, it looks like there's maybe a little bit of red around the base of it, but I'm not too worried about doing that. It's really not noticeable. You got to look really hard to see it in the movie. But I think there's a little bit of red around the bottom of this edge where these lights go, these three lights. But so I pretty much got this sanded, primed. I do have to do a little more work on the sides here. There's a bit of a print line here, and in the same spot on this side there's a print line. Can't see it so much as I can feel it. Yeah, I can see it now. If the light hits it just right, I can see it. So I'm gonna have to probably use some putty, fill that, sand it, and then most of this should be pretty good. But I've got this painted already because this is pretty much already sanded and good to go. But as soon as I get this print line and this print line taken care of, then I can mask off this inside, paint the outside, and then I'll come over this whole thing with a matte clear coat to kind of blend it all together, because right now this is a little bit of a sheen to it. This is flat, and this has a little bit of a sheen to it, so I want it all to kind of blend together and be the same sheen. But so that's what I'm working on right now. I'm going to do that, and once I get that taken care of, we'll come back and see what our next step's going to be. All right, so I've got this base painted up, and I've got to do another coat around the sides, but that's fine. That doesn't, as long as the top is good to go, I can start looking at getting these buttons in place. And all these buttons are made so that they can be functional. And the way that works is you take these momentary switches like I've got, and I don't remember where I got these from, but I'll find it and I'll post a link in the notes below in case you want to do, you do want to make these functional. So I've got these switches, these momentary switches, and I've made these pieces that basically the switch goes in the bottom and it barely fits in there, which is a good tight fit. And then these screws, they just screw right on top. You just tighten it in there. And if you want to get it tighter, you can use an Allen wrench in there, but I don't need to worry about making it too tight right now. So basically they go in like that. And you take a button, like this one, and it goes in the bottom, just like that. And then this piece gets glued, not to the button, but to the frame of the base here. That gets glued in place. And what that lets you do is use this as an actual push button. And the spring in the button itself is what makes it bounce back up. So you don't have to worry about installing anything else. Now you may have to do a little bit of sanding to this because test it a couple times, make sure it's going to pop back up. This one's getting stuck every once in a while, which means I'm going to have to do a little bit of sanding. When you paint this, sometimes the paint will get in there and it'll cause friction. And even the print itself could be a little rough in these openings. So you may have to sand it a little bit so you get smooth action out of these buttons. But that's how those work. And it works for all of these. And see, it's pretty much functional, but it's sticking every once in a while. And then you've got the circle ones down the bottom. They use the same thing. It just goes on the bottom of it. And then you just use this push button, just like that. So you can add whatever function you want. Now I've got the board that I'm using for this. I'm just using a soundboard from Adafruit. And I'll show you what it looks like. This is the sound effects board from Adafruit, and you can basically put I think it's 12. I'd have to look at the instructions again. You've got 0, 1, 2, 3. It looks like 10 slots on here where you can put sound effects in. So there's a ton of buttons on here. So all these obviously aren't going to do anything, at least not for this build. And later on, like I said, I thought about possibly adding some type of lightning bolt effect to that fin. So that's something that could be added. You could have a button that activates that. I'll have a button that works the cannons and plays a little clip from the movie while those are firing. And matter of fact, you know what? Give me a minute. Let me get this set up and I'll show you exactly how this Adafruit board works in case you are not familiar with it. So give me just a minute. All right, so I've got this set up. This is the sound effects. Here's the audio effects soundboard from Adafruit. And I'll put the link for this board in the notes below. That way, if you're interested in it. I've got it powering off my Arduino Uno, but this will run off of a buck converter using 5 volts. So just like I did in the model using a buck converter to work the AT Tiny chips, I'm going to use a buck converter to run this. And basically you hook this up. Now this one has its own built-in amplifier. This speaker isn't the greatest. I think I'm going to have to get a different speaker because it's not very loud with this speaker. But it has stereo sound available. This board here, I believe, is a 16 megabyte version. They've got 8 megabyte version, I think, and maybe even a 2 megabyte. I can't recall. But it's like $35 for this board shipped for the 18, or I think it's 18 megabytes, 16 megabytes, one of the two, 16 megabytes probably. But I was able to put on a couple different sound effects. I'm going to play this. We'll see if you can hear it. I might have to hold the microphone a little bit closer, but we know speakers and microphones don't like to play nice, so we'll see if it'll pick this up. I'll see see if it picked this up when I play this video back. But so they'll play that sound. There's a couple different little sound clips I got from the movie and from the soundtrack. I took some songs, some music clips, and I'm putting them on this. So when you push a button, you'll get either a sound effect, or you'll get a clip of the music from the soundtrack, or you know, some of those things. That's just what I'm putting on here. So it's got 10 spots. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I got 10 switches right here. So these will be the only functional ones. One of these you'll hold down and it'll fire the cannons and play a clip from the attack when the cannons are firing, when the Hawkmen attack. So it'll play that. These buttons I'm not even going to make functional. These ones I'll put buttons behind, but they won't do anything. Like I said, with this build I don't really have a need for them. But these ones I'll have just lit up. They won't be functional because there's really no need for it. There's no point in wasting all the switches to make these functional when they're not going to do anything. But anyway, just wanted to show that board. It's a pretty cool board. It's real easy to program. The website, the Adafruit website, tells you just basically name the file. Depending on how you name the file dictates which switch, not only which switch it's programmed to, but also what action it does. For instance, you can have these to where you have to hold the button down for it to play the clip. You press the button and release it, and it'll play the clip once. You can press the button and release it, and it'll continue to play the clip on repeat until you press the button again. A whole bunch of different effects, and it's real easy to set up. So go over to the Adafruit website. Like I said, I'll put the link in the notes below the video, so check it out. But let me get a couple of these set up and start getting this together. I've also got the light bulbs, which basically will just go in here, and I'll put a LED. I've got to make a 3mm hole in these for an LED to go into. So, but they'll just go in there like that, and they'll just blink is all they do. So let me do some more work on this, though. That's basically how this goes together, but I'll do some more work on this, and we'll come back and take a look at it. All right, so I'm working on these bulbs. I'll go in and edit these so you don't have to do this. But right now I'm having to drill a 3mm hole in the bottom of the bulb here because there's no hole there to put the LED in. So I'll go in and make a 3mm hole in here. That way you don't have to you don't have to worry about this step if you decide to build one of these. But takes a little bit of work to drill these in. But anyway, once I get that drilled in, basically what I'm doing is taking the, I've got some of these, I've got a couple different colors actually. I've got some yellow, some red, and some green self-blinking LEDs, 3mm LEDs. And I've also got these RGB multicolor flashing LEDs. And I'm going to use those for these lights down the bottom here. And then these ones up here are going to be, I think originally they were white, green, and red. I'm going to do green and red, and this one I might either use these yellow or I'll use a steady on white 3mm LED for these. Because I don't want all the lights flashing. It's just a little too much going on. I'm already going to have these three down here, but these will go in. Basically just pop into place like that. These in place, and then once I get these wired up, let's see if I can just get this to run off battery real quick so I can show you what these will do. But once I get these hooked up to a power supply, you'll see they'll start switching. And oops, lost one. So initially they'll start off the same colors, but the longer they go, the more out of sync they get. And which actually these are doing a pretty good job of staying in sync with each other right now. But over time they should get out of sync with each other, so you've got a different color. Each one will be changing to a different color. You can see that one on the right. I don't know if you can tell on camera. It's probably a little washed out on camera, but that one on the right is starting to get a little bit quicker at changing than the one in the middle. And over time, they'll get out of sync, which is perfectly fine because that way they're going to different colors at different times. But right now, they're actually doing a pretty good job of staying in sync with each other. So these might not go out of sync like I was expecting them to, but which I prefer they go out of sync. I don't want them all to be the same color at the same time. I'd rather they were changing colors at different times. So I might have to swap that LED out if they're going to stay the same. Typically, you get these self-changing LEDs, and they will change, or they'll go out of sync with each other over time. And these probably will. They're just going to take a little bit longer, I guess. But anyway, you kind of get the idea. Those will just change lights slowly. And then up the top, I'll probably use a red blinking. Now, these blink pretty fast, so I don't want to use a lot of these. I used more than what I probably should have when I did my TOS. When I did my TOS display, and that, to me, it was just too much to have a whole bunch of blinking lights going on. It kind of takes away from the model itself. But you'll see these just blink. That's all they do. But you don't want too many of these blinking lights because it kind of takes away from the rest of the display when you've got a bunch of flashy lights going on and off. But I'll probably use... I'm thinking I'll do a red and a green flashing on one side, just a red or a green flashing on the other side, and then do a solid steady on white in the middle. I think that was the color pattern, was white in the middle. I'll have to look back at the picture. Actually, I've got the picture right here. So in the picture I'm looking at, you had green, white, red, and then the top is actually green, clear, orange, and the opposite on this side, green, clear, orange, going out that way. So what I might do then is use the green, a steady on, a flashing green, steady on, clear, and then either a steady on or a flashing yellow because I don't have any orange lights. So we'll see when I get to that point. I don't necessarily like to stay strictly with what the colors were on there, but I'd like to stay close to what the studio what the actual prop had on it. So, but anyway, that's where I'm at on that. I'm going to keep working on this, and we'll come back and take a look here in a little bit. All right, I apologize. I did not, I got on the roll putting this together and didn't stop and do as many updates as I was planning to. But I pretty much got this all together now, and I'll kind of go back and do a review of how I got to this point from the previous little shot there that we just had. But basically, I got all the buttons installed, and they're all installed. The lights are all installed. Remember, I was just talking about I drilled a hole in the bottom of the lights and put a 3mm LED in each of these, and used different LEDs for each one. And pretty much got everything installed as far as the lights. I got these little buttons here, which aren't functional. These are just glued in place. I didn't make them functional in this build, but I painted these with clear Tamiya paints, transparent paints. Except for the white buttons, I just left those clear. But then I just glued those in place. And as far as everything else, now I'm going to have to flip this over to kind of show you where I'm at. But this tower here, this is what the war rocket's going to mount on. This peg here is actually going to glue into the bottom. And the wires, there's three wires coming out of the war rocket. They're going to run through this hole. And then they're going to be able to run down through this additional hole you can see here. And this is basically going to sit on top and allow me to turn the war rocket the war rocket around, for different viewing positions. But I've just got this kind of sitting in place right now. I don't have this glued together yet, but basically the way this goes together is just a couple pieces. This is the piece that's going to glue to the bottom of the war rocket to allow it to mount on here. And you'll see that piece there just fits over the top of this piece. And then this piece here, the shroud is just big enough so it kind of helps to hold that in place. But so I've got that worked out. I've been sanding this down because it's a little bit too tall. And basically these discs, I just printed these up in clear. And then I've got these little segments and then discs. So there's about 6 different segments here of discs and these little spacers, which I've painted up. Oops. this last little piece down the bottom here. So basically that's all these are. It all goes together, little segment, clear piece, segment, clear piece. And what I've done here is I've got this rod. This is the mounting rod. Now this is the inside of the rod, and then there's an exterior part of the rod. But you see I've got these SMDs I wired up on here, and for some reason I just, after I got this installed, I had a problem with this one SMD, but it doesn't matter because it's not that noticeable. This one still puts out plenty of light to light up the disc, so I'm not too worried about it. But for whatever reason, this one here, it's shorted on something somewhere, and I can't figure out where because I've checked the wire and don't see where there's any bare wire exposed to that. But for whatever reason, when I hook this SMD up, I lose like 2 or 3 other SMDs. So I just disconnected it. I don't really need it. I've got 2 SMDs per layer. And this is just, I just ran these up, and these are hooked in down the bottom here. This might blind a little bit. But I don't want to break this. Let me make sure I move this around a little bit. Actually, I'm going to unplug this. And what I've got, you can see my mess of wiring in here. I've got all the switches glued in place, and I've got all the wiring run individually. You can see these 3 switches up the top. I don't have any wires running to it because those aren't going to be active. But I've got my buck converter glued to the side here. That's to reduce the voltage for my sound card and for the strobing effect for the mounting rod. And then I've got just clear pieces of film gel glued in here. You can see one, the divider here. You can see a red one here and another red one back here, and that's to give the color to the buttons. So that's the basic setup of this. I'm sorry I didn't really go in, break this down enough to go into detail about how I did every single step. But then I've got my Cobb LED strips, 3 of them glued to the bottom, and then one shorter one glued to the back, which you can see right here. I've got that bezel printing now that's going to go here, and then I can hopefully tomorrow go up to the Office Max and get that that image printed on a transparency, and this will pretty much be done at that point. So again, I'm sorry I didn't really I didn't break this down as much as I would like to have, but it kind of gives you an idea. I mean, the wiring it's a mess. It's complicated, and I do have an AT Tiny in here running those strobes that are on the rod up here. But that's all together. It's pretty much ready to go. I've just got to glue these segments and clear pieces together to mount that over the this external mounting rod over top of the internal mounting rod here, and that'll pretty much be it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get this glued together, get it in place, and then tomorrow I'm going to go get that transparency taken care of. And once I get everything finished on this, we'll come back and take one final look at the display base. All right, well, the War Rocket display base is done. I've got that backlit screen in there now. And if you haven't seen the way I do these backlit screens, and I do them the real cost effective, I guess you could say. Basically what I do is I figure out what image I want, which in this case was the I knew it was the targeting is what I wanted, and I'll make a copy of it and save it as a JPEG, and then I'll get some transparent sheets. I've got a stack of them in my house, and I'll go up to Office Max or Office Depot, one of those, whichever one you've got near you, and I will make a copy of that or print that image to the transparency. And this is what it looks like. I will print. Now, one thing I'm going to say is, when I do it, if it's not something that's going to take up the full page, I will print as many of these as I can to a sheet, because I mean it's going to cost me to print. I might as well print multiples of them. And the reason why I do that, though, is because you see on this one there's a line going through this one. So that one, if I just printed that one, it wouldn't have been any good. I would have had to print another one, use a whole sheet up. So that's why I print, and I printed 4 of these. And another good reason to do that is because when I go to trim them, sometimes if you trim them too much, like this one here, I trimmed too much off one side. You can see I've got that a bit of a gap there before the edge of the photo. So I cut too much off of one side, and then when I went to put it in, if I cut this off, it wouldn't have. It would have had a gap. So good thing I had more of those printed, but that one's no good. And then This one down here is still good. I can still use this one. This one's still in good shape. So I'll probably save that. In case I want to build another one of these, I'll have the targeting image already. But I will print those up. That's how I'll get the image. And print those on the transparency. And then there's two other things. Grab them. One is for the cover of it. I've got one of these big plastic sheets. And I think this came with a poster. It was like a poster frame. And I bought the poster frame because I ended up using the backing of the poster frame for something else. But this is it's just a plastic cover, and you can cut it up easy. You can see I've been cutting bits and pieces off of it because I use this for the screen for the top part. So you can see when you look at this, it's got a bit of a sheen to it. I don't know if the camera's going to pick it up. I still got to glue this bottom part on. But you can see the reflection in it. So I use that to cover the outside of the screen. It also gives the photo a little bit of support. But the main support comes from this piece of sheet styrene. And I don't remember what the thickness is. It's the thicker evergreen that you can get. One of the thicker sheets. And I'll use this as the backing. And you can see that does a great job of not only supporting the image, but also of doing some light diffusion, so you don't get any hot spots in it. And you see the image you see there is a reflection of the lights up here actually. So you got no hot spots in it, and it lights up really well. So that's how I do those images for the background like that. And I got this one done, really happy with it. And so now the base is done, and now I've just got to finish up the war rocket itself to mount to the top. It's the only part that's not done. I've got this actually will get epoxied or glued to the bottom of the war rocket, and it will mount on this rod. So, excuse me. So that's the war rocket's actually sit on here at an angle. You can see this peg here is kind of cut in, excuse me, at an angle. So that when I put the war rocket on here, it's at a little bit of an angle, and then when I turn it, you can see the underside a lot easier, or you see the whichever side profile I want. So this is done, and I'm glad to have this done because it's one step closer. I've got just a little over 2 weeks now to Wonderfest. Today is the 14th of May, so I got about 2 weeks, and I'm going to get that war rocket finished up. I've got a lot of the painting done, which I'm doing in a separate video, which will be out not long after this one should be. But I'm just doing doing the paneling on it, the panel lines. And I've got to finish working on getting the bridge installed, and after that it's pretty much done. I'm not going to have time to fix those lights on that one wing. It's just going to have to wait, and I might have to wait until after Wonderfest and bring it home and fix it then. But I don't have time. By the time I get that done, I've still got to clear coat it yet. I still want to do some oil wash over the war rocket to kind of blend everything in together, do a black, and I got to see if there's a gold oil wash that'll kind of help blend all those different colored panels together. So I've got to go to Hobby Lobby and find that stuff, but that's a different video. The base is pretty much done. I will have these files up for download. At some point I will put out a separate announcement on that when I have it, but if you want to get notified when I do that, just hit the subscribe button and then hit that bell icon, and you'll get the notification when I put out additional videos. And when I put out the update video on this that the files are ready, you'll get notified for that. But I love the way it turned out. I'm really glad I thought about installing this part because I think it adds a nice cool little feature. I usually like to do a lot of when I do the connecting the display rod, the mounting rod, I usually like to do a little added feature to it. You know, my Kronos 1, I did the little explosion addition at the top of where it connects to the Kronos 1, and it just adds a little something to it if I can add something to the mounting rod itself. So I was really glad when that kind of just popped into my head to maybe do something like this, and it's a pretty cool effect to add to it. With it looks like you're powering up the war rocket once I get the war rocket mounted on there. So it'll be really cool. But anyway, that pretty much does it. I think I'm gonna wrap this video up. I'm trying to just keep the base, making the base to itself its own video, so that way if anybody's interested in the files for this base, you can kind of use this as a reference. I didn't go into as much detail as I like, but it's pretty simple assembly. I pretty much talked about how the buttons get held into place with those mounts and the wiring. I've got to look up, I'll try to look up and see where I got those switches from, those Momentary switches, because they will fit. Those bases are made for those switches to fit in there, and should be pretty easy to do. But anyway, thank you everybody for watching. I appreciate all my subscribers. Thank you for all the new subscribers, and if you haven't subscribed yet, please consider hitting that subscribe button. Costs you nothing, but it helps me out tremendously, and it does nothing to you at all unless you want to get the updates, and then you hit the bell icon and you'll get the updates when I put out an update or another video. But other than that, I thank you for your support. Thank you for watching. As always, please visit my sponsors, Gus over at G-Cows, Gary over at Mass Design, and Cass over at Lake Monster Details, who I will be seeing. Actually, I may be seeing all three of them at Wonderfest. I'm not sure if Gary's going. I think Gus is planning to go, and I know Cass is going because he's my roomie. So, anyway, please, the links for all three of them are in the notes below every video, so please check them out. And thank you for watching. Until next time, keep modeling.